What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 664 and a Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast, hot tags of the week, and so on and so forth. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, joined as always by Robert E. Felice.
Hello.
And Callum Wiggins.
Hey there.
And, of course, all of you listening, so thank you for tuning in. We are going to be breaking down the AEW All-In pay-per-view that is happening this Sunday. We are also going to be running down the hot tags of the week. So, you know the score. We always want to know what you have to say. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. While you're there on YouTube, make sure that you click on all those different buttons so you can see on your screen, like the subscribe button and the like button. Ring that notification bell as well for the post-show immediately following AEW All-In on Sunday. It's probably going to be night, I'm assuming, because it starts at noon, I believe. So
it'll be Sunday evening, like
early evening.
Scrum starts at 5 p.m.
Yeah, so somewhere, I don't know if you classify that technically late afternoon. I think, technically speaking, 5 o'clock still supposed to be afternoon, 6 o'clock's night. Whatever the case may be. After that pay-per-view...
Supper time. If you are one who partakes in supper, you'll be listening to Tony talk.
So you're a supper person, as opposed to a dinner.
I am not. I'm saying this person who will be tuning in at 5 p.m. would be.
This miscellaneous person is a supper person.
Yes.
Callum, are you a supper person or a dinner person?
I tend to lean towards the dinner side of things, but then there's always second breakfast as well.
We of course will be doing the live coverage of the pay-per-view as it's going along, and then I'll be probably flying solo for the pay-per-view point post show. Seems like my mouth is holding up pretty well.
I'll be doing a scrum and Callum will be there.
Yeah, seems like my mouth is holding up pretty well from that wisdom teeth surgery, so it shouldn't be any issue of me doing that, even if I end up cutting it a little bit short or so. But some other buttons that you can click that's around here that I mentioned before outside of that little notification bell. That is good, though. Make sure you have that set up and get those email alerts for when we do go live. But also help us keep the lights on here. Click on the thanks button, tussle, spare change our way. Click on the join button, get access to the same stuff as the Patreon. If you prefer Patreon better, patreon.com/smarkoutmoment. Or if you are not on the YouTube side of things and you are just on the audio only streams, Patreon's another option for you. Redbubble and TeePublic is where you can pick up merchandise as well. Help me counterbalance the money I'm spending on getting my teeth extracted that insurance companies don't want to pay for. And we are going to knock out the hot tags first and then get into the AEW discussion. And I figure probably the best way of doing this is to do kind of a breakdown where we end with like collision spoilers heading into the pay-per-view. So for anybody that's wondering about those kind of spoilers, that's something that we're going to save towards the end here. But we do have a lot of hot tags to break down and a lot of matches on the pay-per-view too. So let's start getting into this and, kind of running down what's been happening over the past few days. One thing to mention, a lot of AEW stuff this week, but we got some non-AEW stuff. Actually, not a whole lot of WWE related material on the hot tags this week. Now that I'm looking at this, I think I only have like one WWE hot tag. But let's get into a trademark of that. We seem to already know what the future of the not Hurt Business, but eventually going to be basically the Hurt Business will be. And that is because not only are MVP and Bobby Lashley out of WWE, but trademark has been filed for the Hurt Syndicate, which is as, textbook as you can get when it comes to taking the idea, just replacing something and then being like, all right, we're going to do that again in whatever little fashion that we're going to. Obviously, they can't bring Cedric Alexander into the mix. He's still contracted to WWE, but Shelton Benjamin, MVP, Bobby Lashley, maybe they induct some other people into the Hurt Syndicate. I think the name's cool. It's fine.
It's a little too on the nose, but sometimes that's just how it be. Like Syndicate. We couldn't get the word business, so we got Syndicate. All right.
What was their name in TNA?
Well, that was a different group, but it was the Beatdown Clan. It was those two, Joe,
Kenny King, I think, right?
Kenny King, and Low Key.
I mean, they could have gone the Hurt Clan, but I like Syndicate better than going in that direction, at least. You excited for any kind of Hurt Syndicate popping up in AEW or any of the other types of shows that you might watch, Callum?
Well, I hope they're not popping up in AEW. So, in which case, I probably won't see them. So, but I don't really care.
I don't know if I was going to do the whole bad news thing, but I could see them going to AEW, even if I don't want it that way.
The likelihood of them popping up in AEW this weekend, I think, is extremely low, but I do still think, you never really see. I lean less towards them popping up on All In. I think that we already know the main person that's going to pop in, and that's another hot tag here, is Ricochet has signed with AEW, apparently. Not at all surprising whatsoever. We've been talking about this for a while now, so there's really not a whole lot for us to talk about other than, hey, it seems like it's more of a thing now, so yeah, he's probably just going to be in the Casino Gauntlet, and now
that... It's not a multi-year deal. That's, interesting that he's going to tie himself down to AEW as opposed to doing a major indie run like an Ali. So that stands out to me the most, but I do think we'll see him in the Gauntlet. And for that matter, maybe Lashley. Maybe a lot of people. Who knows how much they're going to cram this Gauntlet.
Well, so far, Orange Cassidy's the only person that's 100% confirmed other than one person else, right? Actually, it might be two people.
There are 6 people confirmed. For
there's 6 now? Gauntlet. Oh, okay. Yeah. Last time I had checked, it was... we're going to break this down a little bit later, but it was... Orange Cassidy, Hangman Page, and then Evil Uno had said that he would be in there, but I was like, they probably writing him off. But now I'm checking Wikipedia. Okay, never mind. So, I mean, the field is filling up quite a bit for that. Not a whole lot of space. But then again, you can throw people into other spots on the card, too. I mean, we do still have...
You don't know if there's going to be a 30-man gauntlet. Like, you don't know how the high this thing's going to go.
That would be kind of funny if they just, it's 2 hours long, and it's like, man, this gauntlet's not ending. We can get back to the Ricochet discussion when we talk about All In. But generally speaking, any other thoughts about Ricochet joining that we haven't already touched upon in the past 3 months?
I hope it works out for him.
Yeah. I'm not going to wish any ill will on the guy.
Yeah, I think he'll do well in this environment. I don't think it would be completely shackles off and he was just completely hands tied in WWE, but it would be a case of I think he's going to be allowed to do a few more things, and I think with his in-ring capabilities, he has more of a higher ceiling in AEW than he did in WWE.
I'm still going to put it out there. I think that his ceiling is the Intercontinental, or not the Intercontinental, the International, or the Continental, or the TNT title. I don't think he's going to get a world title, but you never know. And I think Ricochet is fun as all hell, so looking forward to lots of different people that he can step in the ring with. And, we'll be breaking that down a line too. Let's get into some outside of the mix things. Actually, there are 4 hot tags that I have down that aren't AEW or WWE related. This is a rare week of that. One of them being that Zack Sabre Jr. won the New Japan G1 Climax. He has already called a shot for not Wrestle Kingdom, but King of Pro Wrestling in October, which is going to be 6 days before Royal Quest. And that is, even from an outsider's perspective, pretty interesting to me, because I would think it would make more sense to challenge at Royal Quest. And for them to go and do the match beforehand, not even a week beforehand, and then be like, I want to defend the title at Royal Quest. I'm curious.
There's varying perspectives that you can take on this. So first of all, Zack Sabre Jr. won. I did not expect him to beat the Coast, but he did, so that's great. That was the one that's the result I would have preferred, but I just thought, they're just going 100% on Yota Tsuji, but Tsuji made it to the final and Zack Sabre Jr. tapped him out, so that's the way it goes. So the rationale that he's giving, at the very least, for this decision is that he wants to win the title with King of Pro Wrestling because it's taking place in his favourite arena in Japan. So essentially saying, this is kind of like my home in Japan. Is this... I can't remember the name of the arena. I wouldn't be able to pronounce it anyway. But so he wants to win it there, and then he wants to go into Royal Quest as the champion. So that's kind of the rationale that they're giving behind his decision to kind of break from the most recent tradition of the winner of the G1 challenging at the G1 Climax. Challenging at the Wrestle Kingdom, should I say. And I think that I think it's interesting. There's two different ways you could look at it, and I've basically listened to both of these perspectives from funnily like two different sides of the Voices of Wrestling network, both from like the main side and the side that watches New Japan more often. They both have basically the opposite opinion. One side saying, oh, this is a clear indication they don't really trust Zack Sabre Jr. to be a Wrestle Kingdom main eventer, and so the likelihood is he's just going to lose the match at King of Pro Wrestling, and they'll just have Naito probably main event against somebody from AEW in order to try and make the Wrestle Kingdom main event feel a bit more prestigious than what it currently could be with the current crop of people they have in New Japan. And then the other side of things saying, well, they are wanting to make him like the headline act of Royal Quest, so having him win the title at the King of Pro Wrestling and then go into the UK as champion is a good springboard for him to then build momentum into being the champion going into Wrestle Kingdom, where he'll probably defend again against somebody from AEW, I imagine.
And you got immediately after that is Dynasty, and then immediately after that's New Year Dash, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
that's the 3-day cycle, yeah.
They've got to cram quite a bit over the 3-day span, and New Year Dash is usually just like predominantly a bunch of like 6-man tags and stuff, right?
Well, it usually just sets the tone for what you're going to expect from the year ahead. So there's usually some, it's more of a story-driven show, if you want to put it that way. It's usually where people maybe switch factions, or people start their feud with, they decide who they're going to be challenging at the next big show, and all of that stuff, really. So it's kind of it's after like the big events that are Wrestle Kingdom and Dynasty. That is that's what is the foundation for what New Japan is going to kind of look like for the next 12 months, or at least for the next few months.
Now, I am, of course, always going to say I am not some authority on New Japan whatsoever, but I'm of the opinion that Zack Sabre Jr. is going to win this title at King of Pro Wrestling. He'll retain at Royal Quest against whoever it is. I don't have the slightest idea who he could fight. But I would think Zack Sabre Jr. is going to fight somebody from New Japan at Wrestle Kingdom, and that they'll have some kind of a plan to have him up against somebody from AEW at Dynasty. And whoever he's up against from New Japan at Wrestle Kingdom is just going to be like kind of a filler opponent, and not like, that's like such a big thing, because I think that Dynasty's probably going to overshadow Wrestle Kingdom a little bit. And it wouldn't shock me if he's just up against somebody like Sonata to just be like, well, that's a name and we could do that, but it's, how like WWE, I mean, of course, different philosophies, different companies and stuff, but like WWE sometimes will be like, well, it's WrestleMania, but at the same time, people are going to see WrestleMania no matter what the big thing is. And if we've got all these shows, we got all these people here, it might not be the biggest and most important main event, but it's good enough. And tomorrow we've got this other big show. The next day we got this other big show. But I'm speaking from, not even a lapsed fan's perspective, but somebody who cannot tap into that the same way. Is there any kind of standout procedures you think they might have in place of like, if Zack Sabre Jr. wins this title so far in advance here, who he could be going up against for Wrestle Kingdom?
So it's hard to predict at this point in time, because first of all, we would have no idea how they would even determine who the challenger would be at Wrestle Kingdom, because over the past 10 plus years, the challenger at Wrestle Kingdom is the person who won the G1. So if the person that wins the G1 wins the title before then we have no idea how they determine who the challenger will be. It could go the traditional New Japan route, which essentially guy retains the title in title match, then other guy comes out, challenges him, and that's your next title match. So it could literally be as straightforward as that. We know that in like the later months of the year, so it's like November, December time, New Japan is kind of consumed with the tag league. So that's when you determine who will be the tag team that challenges for the titles at Wrestle Kingdom and who wins their like annual tag league. So by that point in time, we probably would already know who the challenger for Zack Sabre Jr. is. As I say, I'm fairly if Zack Sabre Jr. was to win, I'd go either way. Whether it's Naito wins or Zack Sabre Jr. wins, I think this is a clear indication, at least for me. And again, I'm not like someone who's super tapped into New Japan these days, but someone who's slightly more tapped in. I think that it's just a precursor that an AEW guy is going to challenge for the title at the Wrestle Kingdom main event.
And Wrestle Kingdom, not even at Dynasty?
No, I think Dynasty you're going to have maybe headlined by an AEW title match instead. I think the Wrestle Kingdom main event will be Zack Sabre Jr. against. Yeah, it depends. I'm thinking it could be Okada. The reason I'm saying that is because Okada's never beat. Well, no, Zack Sabre Jr. never beat Okada in a big match. And so if they can kind of agree to it, then they might say, like, hey, can we get Okada in Wrestle Kingdom main event and he puts Zack over? But again, Okada doesn't really put many people over, so I don't know whether they'd be convinced to do that. But I'd say, I think that it could be, like, if it wasn't so obvious that obviously Danielson is retiring in the next couple of months, like we'll probably retire at Wrestle Dream in Seattle, then I would say that they might just do that because they do have like a rubber match. Like they're 1-on-1 against each other. So if you wanted to make that the main event of Wrestle Kingdom instead. So I think that even though it might feel from an outsider's perspective that, it's like WrestleMania, so you can just put Sato Jr. against like Sonada or Shingo Takagi or whoever and just go ahead with it. New Japan doesn't have the same cachet, especially not at the moment, where I don't say that they're struggling for ticket sales, but it's certainly not like a golden period for them. So they probably need to have that marquee match to sell out the Tokyo Dome, or at least get as many people in the building as they possibly can. And at this moment in time, Zack Sabre Jr. is quite untested as a main event draw. So to have him win the title beforehand and basically just put a lot of it on his shoulders, and then especially if you go with the route that they typically do of just saying, we're just going to have a guy come out and challenge you for it, then there's so much of it is on Zack's shoulders because they haven't even really wouldn't have done much to try and build up the next guy coming in. And they say, like, most of the people they had, they gave like a prominent position to in the G1, like Great-O-Khan is already going to challenge Naito. He's having a match with Naito before Zack is for the title, so that'll get out of the way. I don't think they can just go back to Naito again and just we'll just do the rematch at Wrestle Kingdom, because it just feels like, okay, what you're doing is you're essentially just putting the title on some Western guy and then just giving it back to Naito, and then that's the cycle continuing, because that's what happened with Moxley. And so if they do that with Zack as well, then it's just a case of, do you really not have anyone other than Naito that you can push at the moment? Like, is Naito it? It's like, as soon as Naito's knees finally like turn into dust, you just absolutely screwed. Like, so yeah, as I say, there's different possibilities. I think that the worst possible outcome is that, well, the most depressing outcome is that Naito just beats Zack, and they just didn't do it at Wrestle Kingdom just to decide who else Naito is going to be facing at Wrestle Kingdom. I mean, who knows? Maybe at that point, that I know Takeshita was prominently featured in the G1, and maybe they want to try and make him the next big star of New Japan, even if he's not permanently signed to New Japan just yet. So as I say, there's a lot of speculation. There's too many questions and not enough answers at the moment. It all we won't know too much until we see the result of the King of Pro Wrestling match.
Where do you stand on all this, Rob?
Yeah, I think that him challenging in October is weird, but they seem to be in a transitional phase where they're trying new things. Maybe this is a new precedent where the guy can just challenge whenever, or maybe they'll say, yeah, that was dumb. Never do that again. I do see him winning the belt because to me, like Callum says, you can't just, we got to move on from Naito. I mean, yeah, it was great while lasted, but we got to move on from these people before their bodies just completely give out. We have to have other choices. So I think he will win. As far as what they'll do, I can't see them doing an AEW guy at Kingdom when the very next night is Dynasty. But there are enough people there where maybe you do get an Okada. Maybe you get somehow you force Jay White back into Japan. Or, there's a lot of things in play there, but I'm interested enough to see what happens that maybe I'll follow it more going forward. But if Naito beats Zack and they just get out of the way, then that's the worst possible scenario for everybody involved.
Yeah, that seems to me at least to be like, well, we didn't really have a good plan for the G1. We figured we'd just do this for one show. And it kind of screws up Royal Quest, even. So that would be really strange to me if that were to happen. But then again, I don't know. Maybe they have some kind of weird ass plan that I'm completely oblivious to as a non-fan. That is on the New Japan side of things. What's going on with Triple Mania? You guys were filling me in a little bit about this at a time. This sounds kind of insane.
As we were discussing beforehand, how just big of a shit show AAA is right now, and has been for a solid number of years right now. And then their latest show in Mexico City was a clear example of that. Still managed to draw about a good number of people, like 15 to 18,000 people. So, Mexico loves its wrestling, so they will come in for this stuff. But it all kind of started from the beginning with there were issues with the fight broadcast in the people who would have tuned in for the free pre-show in order to try and entice you to buy the pay-per-views in general. If you stuck with the feed, it then just clicked on to the entire feed of the pay-per-view. So if you just stayed on the pre-show, then you got to watch the whole thing for free. Whereas people that didn't had to pay the $25, and then people did try and request refunds and they were refused. So whoever fucked that up, whether it was Fight or whether it was AAA, they should be given refunds back.
Yeah, they should. Absolutely.
Then the show itself, so it was your typical weird all over the place AAA show, which is kind of just buoyed by the fact that it's the Vampiro retirement tour. So Vampiro's doing like a Muto and Sting style final couple of months before he hangs up entirely. But being Vampiro, it probably won't be his retirement even when he says he retires.
I would all jokes aside, doesn't he have some serious illness or something?
I'd say I don't know. I don't follow it closely enough to know what his current condition is. All I know is that he's being one of the biggest draws in AAA right now. So,
he's diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and he has Parkinson's. So yeah, let's try to get out of this as smooth as we can.
Yeah. We defeated El Macias in a casket match, which also featured La Parka just coming out of a casket just randomly. Just wasn't booked for the show or anything. Well, he was booked for the show, but he wasn't featured to appear or anything. He just popped out the coffin. Then you also had Team India, so that's Raj Desi, also formerly known as Jinder Mahal, and Satnam Singh, who were accompanied by Karen Jarrett and Jeff Jarrett,
Damn right.
won the AAA World Tag Team titles. So yeah, that is your current AAA Tag Team titles champions. I would put good money on the fact that they have to vacate the titles before they ever defend it. And then Matt Riddle defeated Commander and Laredo Kid for the World Cruiserweight Championship. According to reports, this is just due to the fact that Commander is part of AEW, so they wanted to get the title off of him. And so they just gave it to Riddle instead. And then in the semi-main event for the AAA Mega Championship, Nick Nemeth, who had won the title, I think a couple of months back, over Alberto El Patron, Alberto Del Rio. Noted prick, Alberto Del Rio. Then lost the title back to Alberto El Patron in like shady shenanigans. Like Conan got involved. They attacked like the good guy general manager of the promotion. JBL was there in Nick Nemeth's corner and didn't help him retain the title. Instead, just shook the hand of Alberto once he was done. And yeah, and then it ended with this giant, like, massive steel cage of death, which is like a big mask versus hair match. Which like had like I think it was 3 teams of 3 all inside. You remember the Steel Asylum from TNA?
Yes.
It was essentially
the big red one, Tony.
Yeah. It was essentially that, and then Psychosis ended up losing his mask. Even though I'm pretty sure Psychosis was unmasked quite a long time ago.
Well, I think it's the second Psychosis.
Oh, this is the second Psychosis.
Yes.
Wow, 57-year-old Psychosis too.
You're really selling me on this pay-per-view.
I mean, like...
And the original Psychosis is younger than the second Psychosis. That's crazy.
Is that real? Like,
yeah, because the original Psychosis is 53. This guy's 57.
That's insane to me. Yeah, someone help Psychosis.
I'm trying to see like if there are any sort of like actual young guys in this main event. Doesn't look like it. Most of the guys are in there. Well, the youngest guy looks like he's in his late 30s. Yeah, it's just like low 49. Like this guy's 57. Oh, this guy's 33. So maybe there were a couple of young guys in it. Probably the ones that don't have any actual like any wiki page. They're probably the younger ones. But yeah, it was just something that we looked at when like, I heard some people like talk about it online, and then just had a look at it and just think. I know enough about AAA to know how bad it is, and know that I wouldn't actually watch it, but just to see, like, this is a real shit show. That, like, Alberto El Patron is your top champion. Like, you know that you're in a pretty dire situation.
You can't sell me on that being something to be like, hey, remember him? Don't you want to watch this? It's like, I didn't like when he was in WWE. You know? Let alone, do I want to watch him now after everything that's happened? And you know,
see, I used to like AAA. Like I used to just in general, like, you know, enjoyed finding any kind of different wrestling back when, you know, there wasn't this easy access to all the wrestling we have now. But like with the problems they constantly have and the fact that almost nothing ever goes off the way it's supposed to, why would anyone watch this?
It's weird to, like, you look at, I mean, it's not just a pro wrestling thing, but it's like across the board. You look at almost anything and you can be like, why is this still around? Why is there an audience for this? But there's, for some reason, an audience for like almost everything. And I don't know, they must get enough people to get enough funds and to do that stuff. Or maybe it's money laundering thing, I don't know. But I can't see this kind of a thing and be like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to start trying to look up some Triple Mania stuff. I'd be like, nah, this looks like this is pretty messy. And
I mean, I feel like it's, especially with Lucha, like, if you have fond memories of a certain era, like, you're probably bound to seek it out. But once you realize what it is now, you're going to wind up just searching up old stuff on YouTube. And that'll be your Lucha fix.
Good Lucha fix. Let's bounce to another thing here. Well, this is we didn't talk about this ahead of time when we were running down the hot tags things, but this is a story for for a week where you're talking about random hot tags, Ronda Rousey's AMA.
Oh. Well,
so, the long and short of this was Ronda Rousey had an AMA on Reddit, and it was bombarded with people asking about Sandy Hook. And she finally put out an apology thing 11 years after this whole thing, is what she's saying. But look, I'm not one to criticize when people are into some conspiracy things. I got a tinfoil hat on for certain things, but this is not one of those. And I always thought that this was one of those absolutely absurd situations that was going on. So, my opinion about her opinion about the Sandy Hook thing. But as far as the news story of this being like on the hot tags, what I wanted to mention was I thought that this was so funny, the way that people were asking questions on this. One of my favorite ones being, is it true that you're really annoyed at WWE and whatever because they pitched to you that you would have to be repackaged as a pirate gimmick and your name would be Sandy Hook?
Look, Ronda deserves what she got. She did put out an apology. I don't know anyone. I haven't read a single response to that didn't just go, "You're 11 years too late." And I kind of think that as far as that situation is concerned, that's probably where it will always stay. But she has apologized. Maybe she actually puts the work and becomes a better person.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's been rightly criticised for the stance that she took originally from that stuff. But then again, like, there were a lot of stupid people who believed that stuff. And Ronda at that time was one of those stupid people. And at least, as you shouldn't like just leap on someone for finally seeing the light and apologising and trying to move on from this whole thing. But, she probably should have done it a lot sooner than she did. But that's the only that's the only thing I'd add to it. But like, at least she's like said, yeah, I was wrong. I was right to be cancelled for it, and her apology does seem to be like sincere and not trying to like save face or anything along those lines. So hopefully has learned and is willing to move on for it. I don't think. Yeah, but again, there is something to be said that it does come conveniently after she was roasted for it on an AMA,
as opposed to.
Just saying
immediately afterward, or soon afterward, or any time in the past 11 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, damage control, you can try to do what you want, but damage already done. And I just thought that it was so funny the way that people were interacting with that. I was just like, I love when people troll in a way that isn't just like disruptive, but it's more like I wouldn't even say like meme culture, but like this like millennial perspective of like the world's ending, fuck it kind of perspective that a lot of us have. And I don't know, I just wanted to call attention to that because I thought it was kind of funny. Here's a not funny situation, but a similar person in trouble situation. Rich Swann arrested, suspended by TNA. He was
what? Sorry, news to me. What? Like,
yeah, he was arrested in June. But like the news is coming out like now, basically. But there's like all this report about how he had been is like a public intoxication, misdemeanor offense. Let me read this report from Post Wrestling about this. Give a shout out to them. He was arrested on June 8th in Florida. Disorderly public intoxication causing a disturbance, misdemeanor offense. He's entering a substance abuse rehab program. This is a byproduct of it. There's more information. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Yeah, people can read. Well, yeah, not everybody, but you know what I mean. But it seems like he is being suspended by TNA to get help, and that he had been talking about drinking a lot when he was asked about this. And we know that there's been an issue with Rich Swann with that in the past. So more so than anything, the story here to me is it's good to hear that he will be getting help, it seems. And that if he is suspended, that's something that should play into future stuff when it comes to TNA.
Yeah, so I see now that this broke on Wednesday, and I was not looking at things on Wednesday, so that sucks, but I'm glad he's getting help.
It's just he's voluntarily entered the rehab program, so that's another good thing, too. Take for what, what you can. Not a story that we really need to break down super crazy, especially because we're not specifically tied down to him, but it's a news story for the week, so I figured I'd mention it. Here's some, I guess we can save some of this stuff, so let's get into, I guess, some TV talk and start kind of heading our way towards our AEW All-In discussion here. On Monday Night Raw, we got a pay-per-view. Not pay-per-view. I'm looking at the thing. This is Pay-Per-Viewpoint. We got an episode that to me felt very just like run-of-the-mill. Like nothing happened on this whatsoever. I think you might have even tweeted about it. Did you, Rob?
Yeah, I did. I basically said that, look, they can't all be winners, but it was a very filler episode of Raw. And I wasn't hard on it. I even said, this shit happens. And a lot of times we're watching wrestling in retrospect. The sheer retrospect of it makes you get through filler episodes easier. But when you're in real time, a filler episode like the one of Raw we just had was brutal to get through.
And I don't remember when I was watching it being like bored out of my brain or anything, but I do remember thinking, oh, this is over, and that really nothing had happened. Like the New Day's feud with Final Testament, I guess it's over. It might not be. I don't know. If it's over, it ended with a whimper, and that's not all that surprising considering the feud's not been all that great, but like the tag title match, nothing going on there. Orton and Kaiser, it's just a match. The Maxine Dupree and Ivy Nile thing was a no contest just to set up another Wyatt 6 go on the attack thing. Like nothing happened on here. And
they set up some things like, Breaker announced an IC title tournament, which is fantastic. Jey Uso is going to be in that. They kind of said Sami Zayn was taking some time off.
Yeah, after all the time that they've been having Jay be like, hey, the two of us should go for the tag titles. Then this week he's like, yeah, Sammy said, never mind. So I'm just going to go for the Intercontinental title.
Sammy needed some time to think or something. Maybe we'll do that.
You got any people that stand out to you as the potential winner of this tournament?
Well, since they flat out said Jay, you have to know that he's going to be, if not the winner, very close to it. I think Dragunov's always a good shot. I think
they are still playing around with this whole, like, he's not turned babyface, but they kind of want to tweener him, it seems, for Braun Breaker.
Right. I think there's, good chance it could be somebody like maybe Gable and Howdy get involved in that somehow. I know they're fighting on Monday, but maybe they get involved in the tournament.
I like the idea of the tournament, but I do feel like this was sort of, I don't know, it was kind of just put out there as like, oh, and then we're going to have a tournament. We'll talk more about it later. And
well, they didn't really, because they didn't set up anything, did they? They didn't say like how many people.
No.
It could just be 2 matches.
No, Breaker was just like, so it's not my fault that I'm great, but there's a tournament and I'll beat the next guy that challenges me. And it was like a 30-second insert thing with Kathy Kelly or whoever it was. I think it was Castagnoli. And that was like one of the bigger news stories to come out of that. So it was just sort of, I don't know. This felt like a really off week. Like some of the writers were missing or something. And then it's been a very weird week for TV in my mind, because then they pre-taped NXT. So we have spoilers for next week's NXT. If you don't want to know about that, then skip forward a little bit. But I'll tell you before we start talking about that, because some stuff happened on this week's. But this week's NXT, they just decided, oh shit, we've got No Mercy coming up. We need to just bombard you with all the information that you need for No Mercy at like the last minute. And at this point, we know pretty much the whole card for No Mercy. Technically speaking, we don't know one of the matches, but we know what that match is going to be, and it's pretty much confirmed when it comes to the taping and all. It's not the biggest shocker that Zachary Wentz and Wesley are going up against each other, because they said that, Wesley's like, hey, we're probably going to have a match at No Mercy like 2 weeks ago. But they had this Gauntlet Eliminator match, and Jada Parker won. So that's another heel versus heel thing for Roxanne Perez.
Well, I think that we're coming really close to the end of her run. And I think they just wanted to get the Jada Parker match in there.
Just for this, like, they just wanted to see it, kind of thing.
Yeah, like this was probably on a short list of matches pre-Stephanie, pre-Julia. So they're like, all right, we're going to give you this, and we'll go on from there.
Strikes me as odd that they're doing all these things, but then this whole Roxanne Perez title reign's been odd to me. Certainly doesn't seem like this was on the schedule for this year. I mean, maybe it was supposed to be Cora Jade, maybe not, I don't know, but that took me by surprise. It also took me by surprise that they immediately right afterwards switched back to Axiom and Nathan Fraser getting a title shot again. So we're just doing the rematch? I couldn't care less. And we'll talk more, when it comes to No Mercy, like specific things. But like when they announced that, I was like, shit, really? Just when Andre Chase and Rich Holland against Supersonic Duo in a rematch?
Yeah, I get it. It's a little bland, but that's probably all they have right now. The NXT, like the men's division of things, doesn't seem as strong as. It feels like they have ideas for their women. With the men, it seems like it varies from week to week.
And they're bouncing around quite a bit too. Like they've been doing this thing with Tony D'Angelo and Obafemi kind of interrupting each other in backstage segments. And on this week's NXT episode, they had a segment where Ren Sinclair, Miles Bourne, and Charlie Dempsey were out to talk about the Heritage Cup, and D'Angelo family comes out. Well, actually, Obafemi comes out first. And I think it was Obafemi coming out first, yeah. To be like, I'm going to challenge for the Heritage Cup. And I was like, wait, what? Are they going to merge these titles? Is that what's going to happen? And then D'Angelo comes out and says, hey, I haven't forgotten about how you won that Heritage Cup from me, which he, just won it back. So kind of, whatever. But I got my eyes on something else. And he goes after and lays out Obafemi. And then the rest of the No Quarter Catch crew and D'Angelo family just keep, feuding with each other. So they're kind of doing that thing that they've done here and there where they're like, we're going to throw all our eggs in this basket and it's going to be a little bit messy, but let's play around in that sandbox for a bit. We're going to know about Femby versus Tony D'Angelo. There's nothing for the Heritage Cup confirmed for No Mercy, and the card's pretty stacked, so I'm assuming that we're not getting anything for that, but we might get something on the NXT prior or whatever. But the NXT after or something. But that's not exactly how I was anticipating things would be. And then Joe Hendry won the number one contenders match. Now that one I did kind of expect, but then they put a little twist on that over the course of the next week too. So earmuffs if you don't want to know what the spoilers are for next week's NXT. Fatal Influence beats the Metaphor duo of Jakar Jackson and Lash Legend, We know who Fatal Influence is now. It's Fallon Henley, JC Jane, and Jasmine Nix. I perpetually already practically keep typing flatulence. And it's driving me crazy because I just keep doing FL and I'm like, no, it's not flatulence. So,
that's not something I thought about. Now it's going to be something I can't stop.
There you go. They're going to see on a future Fightful article, it's going to be flatulence.
Let's hope not. You never know.
Well, Farty Henley or whatever. But Carmen Petrovic had been taken out of the Gauntlet by Izzy Dame and replaced by Brinley Reese. So next week, Petrovic is going to get some revenge on Izzy Dame. There's a 6-person mixed tag match. D'Angelo family, Channing Stacks Lorenzo, Luca Crucifino, and Adriana Rizzo beat the No Quarter Catch crew, or the Ren QCC, Dempsey, Bourne, and Sinclair. The reports that I'm seeing say these like kind of confusing reports of 2 people in suits talked to Tony D'Angelo during the match, and then they all walked off together. So there's got to be some kind of an angle going on there, but maybe it's something very simple that just looks more interesting when it's, we don't have the backstage segments that are going to set it up or something. It's probably, almost nothing, but could be interesting. Zachary Wentz and Wesley just have like a stare off kind of brawl segment or whatever. TNA Knockout pops up. Rosemary goes up against Kilani Jordan and loses. And Wendy Chu lays out Jordan. So we're going to see Rosemary. And it seems like she's in a little bit of a partnership with Wendy Chu, which kind of makes sense a little bit. They're both like spooky character types. I've not seen much of Rosemary, so I can't be like, whoa, I can't believe that she's here. And like, I'm looking forward to her doing X move or something. I know of Rosemary. I've seen maybe a match or 2. I don't really remember much about her, to be honest. Brooks Jensen beats Malik Blade. Joe Coffey beats Javon Evans. They were kind of set up as being a part of this whole Heritage Cup thing, too, in one of these backstage segments where like 15 things happen in 10 seconds. And there was the another Joe Hendry concert. And this is the other tweak to the card. Trick Williams is going to be the special guest referee for No Mercy. So they're really digging the special guest referee thing right now. And I guess they just decided that they didn't want to do Trick and Pete Dunne in any kind of a rematch here. Not the No Mercy card I was expecting. And in some ways, a little bit better. In some ways, quite a bit worse.
I didn't know a lot of those spoilers, but yeah, wasn't expecting that at all. The special guest referee thing seems completely out of the blue, but I hope it's not to turn Trick heel.
I hadn't even thought of that scenario. I don't think so, but maybe there's going to be something where they're going to be like, well, we want to drag out the potential of like him against Ethan Page again, and maybe they were going to set something up, or I don't know. Because the next pay-per-view after this is, I believe, Halloween Havoc is pay-per-view. Although, let me double check. That might not be a pay-per-view. It might just be...
it's a pay-per-view.
Is it? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's in Hershey, the Giant Center. Yeah, so October 27th. So I'm kind of anticipating that it's going to be Ethan Page versus Trick Williams at Halloween Havoc. We'll see.
I'm fine with that,
We do also have Collision spoilers, and that will kind of bring us into some of the stuff with AEW All In. So let's backtrack a little bit and talk about Dynamite and kind of set us up for this pay-per-view that we're going to talk about here for the Pay-Per-Viewpoint stuff. So real quick, Forbidden Door is coming to London in 2025. They had mentioned before that AEW All In is going to be in Texas next year as opposed to at Wembley Stadium, and that they would be coming back to London, in some other capacity. And now we know it's Forbidden Door. So You're gonna book your tickets in advance, Cal?
Yeah, as soon as they properly announce it, then I'll try and seal a spot. Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. I think that's arguably an upgrade. You can get some different people that you normally wouldn't get on the card.
Well, I'm probably going to go to the New Japan show.
I was going to ask if you're going to Royal Quest.
There's a chance. That's not as certain as this one, but yeah, I probably will end up going to Royal Quest as well. I usually go to the New Japan show that comes to the UK every year anyway, so...
So
yeah,
back.
It's nice to have a big show still taking place in London next year.
Do you have a kind of preference of like? Do you think that this is kind of cooler, or do you like the idea of if they would have just kept it all in instead?
Well, I think that, and I know it might be on my own saying this, but I just think AEW has the greatest streak of fantastic pay-per-views in wrestling history. So any one of those shows that they want to put on there, they could put Revolution, Dynasty, Wrestle Dream, whatever. It was going to be a great show. So I'm not going to be upset about which one of those great shows they want to put in front of us.
As long as you're getting something, not going to complain. Kind of.
Absolutely.
So the Dynamite episode, a lot of it is, it's just more matches, kind of the same as what like some other things are, but Chris Jericho beating Tommy Billington, like, that's not something that's factoring into the pay-per-view, but Tony Storm beats Saraya to retain the title. Not at all surprising on that front. Been seeing a lot of criticism about that match. I can't say rightfully so, in the sense of being like, and I thought this about it, because to be perfectly honest, I didn't even watch it. I couldn't care less. I was like, well, I haven't been digging what Saraya's been doing. I've long been, it's been like 3 years now of me being like, I don't really dig the Tony Storm character and all. So,
is it 3 years?
It seems like
it's only been a year, but
Well, I mean, the Outcast thing on top of that.
But even
that
still,
was only a year and a half.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Really?
Oh yeah. I was like, wait.
2024 has been a fucking year, man. So I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to that, but I've been seeing a lot of people that are like, man, I hope that Saraya doesn't re-sign, or like, what is this garbage on my TV? A lot of that. Do you guys have any like strong opinions one way or another about that?
I didn't think the match was very good. I didn't think it was like... I
wasn't ready to, boycott the show.
Yeah. I say, like, I won't bat an eyelid if Saraya, like, leaves at the end of her contract and she goes back to WWE. Because, at least according to stuff I've seen online from people that potentially are in the know, apparently it was a Vince decision to let Saraya go, or to not renew her contract, and then by the time that Saraya was in AEW, that's when Triple H kind of took over, he called her up to say like, oh, are you available to do stuff, but she'd already signed with AEW, so clearly Triple H would take her back if he had the opportunity, or maybe not, because that was obviously probably at the time that she just signed with AEW, so it depends on what his perspective is now, but yeah, I would not be at all upset if she left and went back to WWE instead, or went anywhere else. But yeah, as I don't think the match was very good, but the crowd helped lift it. Like, the crowd helped lift basically everything on the show.
How'd you guys feel about Okada and Claudio going to a draw?
That's going to be an all-out match. Never seen them do the rematch there.
Yeah, that's a smart thought. It's good. Like, good for Claudio, getting to hang with Okada. It was only 20, but like, still good for Claudio, since he did come in with a huge boom that has his ceiling has sort of followed him since, I think.
I think that overall, like, the Okada thing in AEW has been a bit underwhelming in general, just because he doesn't wrestle enough.
Yeah, I can go on a tangent about how the whole elite thing has been
we'll talk about that when we get to All In general, but yeah, I mean, the match itself was good, not great. I think it was approaching great, but then the time that ended. So I think they'll do the rematch at All Out, because at the end, we have to always keep in mind that it's only another like 2.5 weeks until All Out, so they have to start in the background, start building matches for that show as well as the stuff they're doing for Wembley.
I'm very curious as to how Texas All In is going to allow for the full build for All Out, and if they try to stay in that July range, if they can, moving forward.
It's strange to me that Okada's not on the card for All In.
Casino Gauntlet.
Well, he's not confirmed.
But we need surprises.
No, he's not confirmed for that. No,
he's not one of the. He's not one of the ones confirmed. No.
And ultimately, not everybody's going to be on there unless it is another 40-man thing like we were talking about.
It is interesting that they have decided not to use Okada in an actual singles match on this show.
Yeah, I get that Omega was the original plan, and nothing as big as that, but still, it's Okada. You really think you would have tried to get him on the show?
I think they basically decided that they've already got 4 or 5 big drawing singles matches on the show, so they've decided that the rest of the card doesn't really matter in terms of ticket sales or pay-per-view buys, so just adding Okada in it would just be trying to just obviously, I would prefer it because it would make the show better, but it just means that it's not a priority, and you can then have the Okada match for All Out, which probably needs more help selling tickets than the Wembley show does.
I hear you, I do, but I still think if you have Okada and he is healthy, this is the kind of show where he should have had a match. You should have had at least a plan B if Omega wasn't going to come through. You know what I mean?
Or do the Claudio match. You could do something else for All Out too.
Yeah, I agree. I would put the Okada match on it, but they have decided that they need to separate them out to a degree. That's why when we get to talk about All In, that's why you got the match that you have on the buy-in, and you don't have the women's title match, because the women's title match is taking place at All Out.
Well, the setup for All In, currently we don't know every match that's probably going to be on there, because there is a high chance that there will be way more matches added to this, knowing the way that most of these pay-per-views tend to go.
It's a 2-hour long 0 hour. They're not just going to have one match on that.
Absolutely not. But the current announcement, at least, there is only one 100% confirmed 0 hour match, and that's a mixed tag team match. And Willow, Nightingale, and Tomohiro Ishii are going up against Stokely, Hathaway, and Kris Statlander. Winning team is going to choose the stipulation of the match between Nightingale and Statlander at All Out. So, without that stipulation, I was just going, all right, well, Willow and Ishii win, and they dance around, and that's a happy pre-show match. Anytime that something becomes winner chooses stipulation for a future match, my brain instinctively goes, well, the heel's going to win. So that way they can choose some kind of no DQ, blah, blah, blah type of match. But that's not necessarily a guarantee. Plenty of times in the past, babyfaces have won to be able to choose a stipulation that's and I'm going to force Stokely Hathaway to be in a shark cage, or, this is going to be a submission match so that I can force you to say I quit, or, something along those lines. So it really doesn't matter, even though there are stakes now. And I have to update that on my original prediction, because I was just there's no stakes attached, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm, 50-50 hit or miss or whatever. I'm going to say Ishii and Nightingale still win.
Yeah, I think there's too much funny in Stokely Ishii. I'm going to go Stokely.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have Tomohiro Ishii get pinned by Stokely Hathaway. I think there's a...
Why can't we have fun?
Well, you think that's fun, having a manager pin one of the most entertaining Japanese wrestlers?
It could be, depending on how we get there.
I think that... Well, I have, in my mind, I'm thinking that Hathaway gets out of this match, and there's like either a debut or something happens that Kris Statlander gets another partner, and they have a more proper mixed tag match. But Stokely is a former wrestler. Was wrestling until like 2019, so he's not going to be like out of place here. And they've done like the fun training vignettes of him trying to hit like brain busters and suplexes on other people. So they might, I think he'll try and have fun trying to suplex Ishii, but I think the likely result is that Ishii Stokely on his head, and Willow and Tomohiro Ishii win.
Roddy still might owe him a favor for Diamond Line. Maybe they slot Roddy in here.
Well, Roddy's in the Casino Gauntlet.
Oh, good. I'm glad that they've confirmed that.
Well, speaking about that, the Casino Gauntlet right now, confirmed entrance, or at least seemingly confirmed entrance, because I do think that Evil Uno can get pulled from this, are Evil Uno, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, Mark Briscoe, Hangman Adam Page, and Orange Cassidy. Now, that is going to force me to update something that I had pre-written up about what is the biggest omission from the card, because I had previously been like, all right, well, it's kind of strange that the conglomeration isn't set up for that. So, boo to forcing me to rewrite an article. But those 6 people should make up the majority of it, maybe with some tweaks and all. I'm very much just like, all right, well, Evil Uno makes no sense to me to be in here. I don't know why the hell they would put him in that. So I think that having him get attacked by Page on Dynamite was their way of being like, oh, look at that. Page even took out somebody. And then that's where like Ricochet is going to come in instead and be like, well, Evil Uno was replaced, and, we're going to have a surprise person. And then, Ricochet pops up or something. So the winner of the Gauntlet does get a future World Championship match. And that's interesting enough as it is. But also on top of that, we know that Darby Allin's got his future world title match at Grand Slam. I believe they still haven't said when this world title match would be, right?
No, it's just for a future
Correct.
world title match, yeah.
So and have they specified world title yet?
Yeah. Yes, it's AEW World Championship.
Okay, good.
So that is already another whole like, well, All Out is right in, just a few weeks. I would think the logical thing would be, well, the winner of this gets the match at All Out. But it's not been specified, so you can't treat that as a guarantee. It's not a certainty that this is going to be for the All Out title match. And it could very easily just be like, I don't think that this is going to happen, but it could very easily just be like, all right, well, Roderick Strong wins and he gets a match on Dynamite and we push it out of the way and then we're moving on to some other kind of thing. But I look at this list and I'm like, all right, Mark Briscoe, I can't imagine him winning it. Kyle O'Reilly, don't think he's got a chance. Evil Uno, I don't even think he was going to be in the match. Roderick Strong, I don't think so. So assuming we don't get 15 other people added in here, boil this down to Orange Cassidy, Ricochet, and Hangman Adam Page. And I instinctively go Hangman Adam Page, probably.
I think if it stays the lineup that it has with only the one guy being Ricochet, then Hangman probably wins. Hangman has issues with both guys in the world title match, so it's the easiest kind of obstacle you can put in there because it doesn't give away anything. But at the same time, I still can't believe this show is going off without Moxley. And then I think if Moxley shows up, Moxley wins.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to be at least a dozen people in this match. Probably, I'd argue that they'll try and make this the biggest Gauntlet match they've ever done so far and make it like, a pseudo Royal Rumble. They've already noted in the past that the Casino Gauntlet has a maximum of 21 participants. So they could go all the way to the maximum if they want to. But I'm imagining that we're going to... Yeah, Moxley's a very good shout. Ricochet's a good shout. I think we're going to get Zack Sabre Jr. in this match because he is wrestling at the Rev Pro show the day beforehand. I think we're going to get Michael Oku in this match as well because he is on Collision, I believe. So I think that there are multiple people that haven't been announced, because that's part of the Casino Gauntlet. It's like, okay, we have some people that have said their name is in the hat for it, but there are plenty of other people that will come out as surprises. There's probably some interesting names out there, both from like the British scene and in AEW that haven't been fully announced yet, because there's lots of people from AEW that on the AEW roster that haven't been announced for anything big. Like Jay White, I know he's been suffering with injury, but if he's ready to go, he could be in it. I mean, Tony Khan reiterated that Ricky Starks is still under contract, so maybe he could just pop up and be in this match as well. Like,
so that pissed me off as somebody who was. No, it did. Like, seriously, the way that it was said, it was just like, well, we think he's great and he's still under contract. And it's like, if that's the answer you're going to give, then yeah, Ricky Starks should show up here. You know? So that's my personal opinion.
That kind of strikes me as just like, well, I can't say that he's leaving. I'm just going to say he's still under contract because I'm technically
Why can't you? That's false. He has said, hey, I don't think Andrade is going to continue on with us. Hey, I don't know what Miro is doing. Like,
maybe they still think that they can convince him.
I mean, I would go with the mindset of like, if Ricky Starks wants to leave, then you should just let him go. But like,
yeah,
there's no benefit to holding him on to the contract for like holding him on for any longer than he's willing to stay. But yeah, that's like, there's plenty of opportunities in the Casino Gauntlet. I think if Moxley isn't, I mean, the obvious answer is Page wins, because you've got whatever happens in the world title match to think about. But the actual interesting thing is if Page looks like he's going to win and gets like, and then something happens to cost him, because that's kind of his story at the moment, that he's getting close to getting his hands on Swerve, but then something just goes wrong. Whether it's he was getting his hands on Swerve in the Blood and Guts match, but then he got into issues with like Okada and the rest of his teammates, and so that screwed him out of the situation. You have the finals of the Owen Hart tournament coming out short against Danielson, and he's been like losing other opportunities. So I think that having him come up just short in this one as well was just another thing to drive him crazy into, okay, I need to get my hands on Swerve some other way. And so having someone like Moxley win, again, depending on how other things go, is I think that could be part of the reason why we don't see Page win this one. So Page is the easy answer, but I think that it will probably be someone like Moxley instead.
The unknown of that makes this one of the hardest things to predict, for sure. Because we also don't even know who's going to be holding the title. So, yeah, it's another whole thing. Let's bounce to the FTW Championship match. This is a last chance match. Chris Jericho is defending the title against Hook. If Hook does not win, then he will not be able to challenge Jericho again for the title, as long as Jericho is holding the FTW for the World Championship. I'm past the point of just being like, all right, just give it back to Hook. The feud's gone on long enough. I liked aspects of it. I'm not as opposed to the learning tree thing as a lot of other people are, but it's even some of the elements that I am a fan of, I'm kind of not thinking as much anymore. So just put it back on Hook and move on, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I'm not like, this isn't the match that I'm super excited for, but I think they'll just have Hook win, but Hook's, as I say, that just leaves Hook in the same holding pattern he's been for the past 2 or 3 years or so. But as I say, I think that there are different options. Like, Jericho's super over in the UK, so I imagine that Jericho will get a good reaction, as well as Hook as well. So I think the crowd will enjoy this match. But there is a possibility that Jericho just wins, because if Hook is one of those people that is just going to let his contract run down, is going to test free agency or go to NXT or something, then this would be the ideal way to write him off, by just having Jericho beat him and then like Jericho just retiring the championship altogether. But I think that the likelihood is Hook's going to win, and then he'll retire the championship, and then he'll go after other things up until the point that he probably leaves. I'm pretty much resigning to the idea that Hook's probably going to go to NXT.
Is there any particular reason why you think that that's the direction?
I just think that he hasn't seen any upward mobility in AEW, so I think that I think we're kind of looking at a bit of a Jade Cargill situation with Hook, in that I think Hook hasn't really advanced as a performer. So it's a mixed thing. I think that he hasn't been booked well enough in AEW because he hasn't seen any upward trajectory besides that one time actually going into Tomohiro. But I also think that as a performer, he hasn't developed either with any real kind of, like, he's good, but he's never been like, but I kind of feel like he's not significantly better than what he was when he debuted. So I think he might just go to NXT to try something different. So yeah, I don't think AEW is losing a lot if they lose Hook. Let's say you want to keep all the young up and comers, but I think that you could lose Hook and then gain someone else from the independent circuit, or maybe someone from NXT whose place Hook takes, and maybe try something different in future. So that would be the only way I'd see Jericho winning and retaining, but I think Hook will win here.
The first thing I thought of for some reason was Brooks Jensen. It'd be like, we switched Hook for Brooke.
Well, I think he's probably looking more at maybe he'd fit more on a AAA card.
Rob, what are you thinking about the FTW title situation?
I think with the caveat that it's his last shot, I think you could always have Jericho win and just say, guess what? You are now like banned from ever challenging for the FTW title. And that's the way you move him on. I actually don't see him leaving unless, like, I don't know, not these would be hard concessions for WWE to make, but like, is WWE going to give him Action Bronson and a Hook signal? Like, he's gotten some character development in AEW, and I kind of want him to stay, but I'm also intrigued that Callum seems resigned to the idea that he might just leave. Because you wouldn't do bad in NXT, it's just I think he is doing okay in AEW.
Let's switch over to the three-way for the tag titles. The Young Bucks up against FTR and the Acclaimed. Man, I hate to be this type of guy. Young Bucks have had some great matches. The Acclaimed, super fun tag team. FTR, awesome tag team. I don't care about this at all.
You're being harsh.
Like, it's not working for me.
This is the match that I'm least looking forward to on the entire show. I wish it wasn't happening. I think that the whole Elite storyline with Vince Tony Khan and taking over has flopped massively. I think things that they expected to happen, or things they were hoping happened, haven't come to fruition, and so they're kind of just lost in the void. I think the Bucks have been. I think that it's clear that things haven't gone to plan, because I think the Bucks' performances and their general demeanor has shown that they're kind of a bit checked out in this whole storyline, and they seem pretty checked out in general. FTR, you're always going to get 100% with FTR, and they're going to try as hard as possible. And they had a very good match, the Acclaimed and Collision, which led to this three-way match. But the Acclaimed, after being revitalized a little bit in the Blood and Guts match, still feel quite cold in general. And it's just, we had the Young Bucks versus FTR for the tag titles last year at Wembley, so it doesn't feel like we've advanced or anything's happened. The whole tag team scene in AEW is so just bland and unexciting at the moment. But the most exciting thing that's happened in tag division probably the last 2 years is when a 65-year-old Sting held the title instead. So it's like, I think that, there's just a general malaise surrounding the tag team division, which is crazy considering like probably the most like prominent EVPs in the entire company are like one of the best tag teams in modern history. So and this is just culminated in this very blah three-way match. It's not even like a straight like 2-on-2 tag team match. They've had to just cram 3 teams into it. So I'd say I think this is just pretty lame, and I don't really care who wins. I think the Young Bucks will probably retain, but it doesn't do anything for me.
I hate everything the Young Bucks are doing right now. This isn't like a I hate the Young Bucks thing. This is just like a I will even compare it to us. There you can feel the total shift in these podcasts, and you can pinpoint when Tony checked out. The Young Bucks feel checked out, and it's not fun to watch. I don't care that we're trying to be peas and you're trying to hate us. I'll say it every fucking time. All anybody wanted from this company was just the Bullet Club doing the shit they were doing. And it really feels like, specifically with Kenny and the Bucks, it was always a pain in the ass to get to just what we were wanting to see. But yeah, I don't know who could win this match. You know what? Give it to FTR. Maybe they'll be fighting champs. I don't want it to go to the Acclaimed because of Board of the Act. And I don't want it to go to the Bucks because they're not entertaining me right now. So I'd rather go to FTR. At least then you know what you're getting.
I think we're just in desperate need of a big shake-up in the tag team scene with AEW. We need a young team to win those titles, someone who hasn't held it before, and just go on a bit of a run with it. Whether that's Top Flight, whether that's Private Party, whether that's just any like new young up-and-coming team that you want to put together and like try it out for a while, because just at the moment it just felt like it's just appearing on the same faces over and over again. So you need something in order to mix it up a bit.
I'm gonna stick on that they're just gonna keep it on the Young Bucks, and that there is no real plan whatsoever, and they were pretty much just like, what teams can we have a match with because we don't want to not have a match? Like the most basic. Sure, the match will be fine. If not, like maybe they would have thought that the Acclaimed match wasn't big enough, so they figured they'd throw the FTR team in there to be like, let's spruce it up, and that's it. Like, I don't think that there's a whole lot more to it.
You could also spruce things up with a cage or like a gimmick of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, I always like when they play around with things like that more, but they didn't. Instead, it's just this, and I don't know. Like I said, it's just not doing anything for me, and it sucks because I like the teams. So I was hoping that I would be like super pumped for this. I'm sure the match will be fine, if not good, or for all we know, it's gonna be great. But like the actual like what we're getting heading into this, every time in particular that FTR and the Acclaimed interact, I'm just like, I'm just going to go do something else. And like this segment will end in the next couple minutes. Like it's not captivating me whatsoever. That's a shame. It's not the only tag title match though. We have a 4-way London Ladders match. And here's where we're going to get into a little bit of our spoilers when it comes
Callum,
to...
what does that mean? Hold on. Callum, what's the London Ladder?
It's just alliteration.
I see. Not that,
Is there,
not that exciting.
Like the London Ladders falling down.
Yeah, but like, that's what I thought.
Look, I mean, I would have probably called it like the Tower of London match.
Yeah. Instantly better. But like that's what the joke I was gonna make is like, are they mandated to be bridged around the ring because it's a London Ladders match? What are we doing here? Like, why we gotta name things like that? And also, is this not like the 6th major ladder match they've done this year? It feels like we've seen a lot, and
yet we haven't had the traditional ones. The Face of the Revolution ladder match, I don't think had happened this year. We didn't get, if I'm remembering correctly, we didn't get a casino ladder match yet. So that's, it's kind of interesting when they do that kind of thing where it's like, well, we really like our ladder matches, but not those. I don't like them anymore. Again, it's spoilers for Collision. I'll just run down all the spoilers for anybody that wants to know it. But Conglomerations, Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, and Kyle O'Reilly beat the Undisputed Kingdom. Willow Nightingale beats Harley Cameron. Katsuyori Shibata beats Jay Lethal. Statlander and Stokely Hathaway beat Nina Samuels and Kid Lycos II, or Kid Lycos 2. I don't know who that is. Sounds familiar, but it's not ringing any bells. Hook beats Big Bill. Jeff Jarrett beats Arya Daivari. And then here's where you come back around to this. The London Ladders qualifying match. Top flights, Dante Martin and Darius Martin and Leo Rush lose to Wheeler Yuta, Claudio Castagnoli, and Pac. Meaning that the four-way is going to be the Patriarchy versus the Bang Bang Gang versus House of Black versus Pac and the Blackpool Combat Club. The Packpool Combat Club. Yeah, see, you know where I was going on that one. I don't dislike the idea of Pac being associated with this group, and there's part of me that's kind of like, I don't know, maybe he should join. I don't think that they're going to go in that direction.
They're going to have a spot open, so when Danielson leaves. So
I mean, that's I think that could be like, so like if I'm booking this match, not knowing what their plans are for the future whatsoever. I mean, I wouldn't have probably been in this scenario for a lot of the all-in card. I think that I would have tweaked probably the entire card. You go back far enough. But Pac being on the card actually is like, all right, cool. Because originally I was like, well, that's kind of crazy that Pac is not on this card after all this discussion about him being like, going to be in, Wembley and all. But to be teaming up with Claudio and Wheeler Yuta, and for there not to be a Moxley in there, and this whole situation, I'm like, the most interesting scenario in my mind would be if Blackpool Combat Club and Pac win, and Pac becomes like a part of the Blackpool Combat Club. But I don't think that that's happening, and I think part of it is also because they have that all-out match set up. Doesn't have to be something where it's one or the other. There have been plenty of times where people have been a champion fighting for another one. Pac did it specifically where he had the two different titles at the same time. So
Justin Rose doing it right now, by the way.
It's it's not like a certainty whatsoever, but that's the most interesting scenario to me. And that's what I'm going to be rooting for, is for the BCC and Pac to win. But I don't think it's going to happen. I'm leaning much more towards the Patriarchy just retains.
Yeah, I am as well, because Christian's got a plan and he wants to hold multiple titles at once, and they just gave it to the Patriarchy, so I don't see them losing it here. But stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I mean, I would presume the Patriarchy wins as well. I mean, it's been 12 guys in a ladder match, so it's going to be crazy. I think that, eventually with the Patriarchy, it's all got to come down to Killswitch making a mistake and then them turning on him, because that's always been the story. I mean, technically, with Christian Cage, is anybody to believe, the current trio champions are him, Nick Wayne, and Mother Wayne.
Right.
So Killswitch is just there to just be in Mother Wayne's place for the title match. But so eventually something's going to have to go wrong, and he's going to be blamed for it, and he's going to have to turn babyface off the back of it. So it could happen on this show. I don't think it will just yet. So, I have the Patriarchy retain. It's good that Pat's getting a match on this show. As I think that it's pretty obvious based on this that the match was going to be Death Triangle was the fourth team in this, but then it became apparent that Phoenix and Pentagon weren't sticking around, so they get thrown out and Blackpool Combat Club get to be the beneficiaries of it. So yeah, I think it'll be a very fun match, as most of these multi-man ladder matches are.
Into the dynamic of the match when you think about plugging in Claudio and Wheeler for Penta and Phoenix. A lot less flying, and probably good to have base and Claudio that can ground a lot of these things.
So what's the full lineup here? We got,
I think we're all going
Patriarchy.
Yeah.
All of us going on that direction. Again, like, we'll see when it comes down to that, but it does kind of seem weird if they were to go with, like, just putting it back on House of Black, seems weird if they would just put it back on the Bang Bang Gang and then do this whole like dance around, because why would they just, do that for no reason? And then I do get more of the feeling that PAC and BCC are thrown in there just for the sake of getting them on the card more than anything else. But it's a match that I think, even if the outcome is just as simple as Patriarchy retain and whatever, the match itself, throw a bunch of tag teams in there, you have all flipping around with the ladders, probably going to have fun watching it. I can't say the same, unfortunately, about Toni Storm against Mariah May for the AEW Women's World Championship. Again, there's just something about this that is not resonating with me. And it sucks because I liked some of what was happening with this ahead of time. But there's been a disconnect with Mariah May turning on Toni Storm where it didn't work for me. And just spending the past 2 months or whatever it's been, maybe it's been less than that, with Mariah May just being like, I'm going to beat up Toni Storm and we're going to have the match. I'm kind of just feeling myself being like, can we just do it and get it over with? And it's weird for me to say it, considering how I keep kind of repeating the same thing about being blah about Toni Storm. I'd rather her retain than for Mariah May to win. So I'm going to go with Toni Storm.
Sorry, when did you say that heel turn took place?
You probably said 2 months ago.
It feels like it.
Ago.
It was about like maybe 4 weeks maximum.
Everything feels like it's taken forever to be these days.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think Mariah May should win here. If only because it'd be nice to get a new champion in there. Storm's actually been champion for quite a while, and she's been part of the crew that has kind of popped it back and forth. So I'm ready for a new champion. I think that this match has been built perfectly. I've enjoyed Mariah May's growth. More than anything, I've enjoyed the fact that this was apparently just a plan that they had and they stuck to it. And I think that's always impressive in 2024. But yeah, I think the match will be good.
So I think that there was the big peak when Mariah May thought that was an excellently done angle. And I think that her attacking Toni with the shoe and busting her open and just leaving her a bloody mess was just the greatest way to kick off this feud. And it's cooled off considerably since then, because I just don't think Mariah has stepped up as a championship level contender. I think that her promos haven't been particularly strong. I don't think she's really demonstrated the viciousness that she demonstrated when she attacked Toni in her other matches since it's happened. So I think that Mariah has kind of put her, when she should be putting the foot down to accelerate up to this big match, she's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle. And I'd say like Mariah is very new to wrestling. She's only been doing it for since 2018. So it's about 6 years, but like that was like in her very, very early days. And it's like still only in like her mid-20s. She's still got a lot to learn, and this would be the biggest stage that she's ever been performing on. So you could understand a bit of hesitation and maybe a bit of a deer in the headlights type approach to this. That being said, I think that she should win the title, and it's like a sink or swim thing, because there are plenty of other top women in AEW that if you go with Mariah and it doesn't work out particularly well, like she could have like a 3-month reign, and then you've got people like Willow Nightingale and Jamie Hayter if she comes back, and like Kris Statlander, people on those lines that, like, if you wanted to, you could always just put the title on a more dependable set of hands later on. So I think that you do need to have her get this big win over Toni Storm, who has held the title for close to, about 9 months at this point. So it would be a good way to at least launch her. I think that the match itself is going to be very good. I think that they will go onto the vicious side of things. They have obviously been talking a big game about how they're just going to absolutely kill each other in the ring. I can totally imagine they'll both wear white. I imagine they're both going to bust each other open. I think it's going to be quite a bloody vicious match. So yeah, and I think that will help elevate it. I think the crowd will get behind it, and yeah, as I think this match will be pretty good, and Mariah will win.
Who do you think could be her next feud out of this, and like maybe not necessarily her challenger for All Out, but possibly. I also can't think of anybody that, like, if it's Toni Storm retaining, I can't think of anybody that's necessarily the next in line. If it's Mariah May, I can't think of anybody challenging her.
It's because I don't think they'll obviously go with like a super big match straight off, whether it's All Out or.
Did Hayter lose the belt, or did Hayter get stripped?
She lost it to Toni Storm.
Okay.
In that like minute-long match they did at the show that Hayter got injured.
Right. Because she got attacked pre-match, right?
Yeah.
So that could be something, no matter who wins.
Yeah, as I say, I think it depends on other factors. Like, I could see it being Mina Shirakawa if they decide that as part of Mariah May's turn, she also like Mina doesn't understand why she's behaving like this, and so she turns on her, and then you can have an immediate feud off the back of that. As I say, you've got other women, they're like a Serena Deeb or Nyla Rose, someone like that can do like a good makeshift like middle feud. I think Hikaru Shida is turning heel, but you could have her lose to Mariah May in the meantime for that. So it'll be I want to say like a filler one to make it sound like, but that's essentially what it will be for her first one, and then she'll get hopefully a more prominent feud off the back of it. But I don't think her first one is going to be a particularly memorable standout rivalry.
And then if we're just talking straight to 2 weeks from now, they can always just run Tony again.
Never been the biggest fan of that, but it is an option. The AEW TBS Championship feels like a bigger deal in some ways to me because of all the news stories coming out with Britt Baker and all, but Dr. Britt Baker is challenging Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné is certainly not losing that title whatsoever. She is 100% going to be my pick. I don't really know what else to say beyond that. They'll do their thing.
This is a match where I think if you'd have asked me a year ago, 2 years ago, definitely 3 years ago, it would have been over the moon. I hope that they can deliver that level of a performance. But yes, I don't think Mercedes is losing by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm not as like cut and dry on Mercedes straight up retaining. I think there's a chance they have Britt win because it adds her credibility to the title as well. And I think that they could do a back and forth thing going forward. I think that they could make this like a 3-match feud between now and the end of the year. Like one at this show, maybe one at Wrestle Dream, and then one at World's End or Full Gear to round it off. So yeah, I don't think it's out of the question that Britt Baker wins the title here. I hope the match is good. I've been like pretty harsh on Britt's what feels to be her motivation in this one. I think that the promo battle they gave at the Go Home Dynamite helped raise my interest and expectation for this match. So I'm hoping that they go in there and have a good one. I think this is going to be the more, out of the 2 big women's matches on the show, this one's going to be the more, like, I guess, like technical, like bell to bell kind of match. Whereas I imagine that Toni Storm versus Mariah May is just going to be a bloody brawl. This one's going to be the more, classic type match. And yeah, if gun to my head, I'd probably say Mercedes is going to retain thanks to something that Camille helps out with, but I wouldn't be surprised if Britt won the first round of this feud.
We got the TNT title is on the line in a coffin match. Jack Perry has his new championship belt that he had for some reason melted down and resculpted, which I forget where I put it in, but somebody sent that to me or whatever, and I was like, wouldn't he have just been better off if he just painted it? because he didn't make it a different belt. He just redid it. So could just kind of, put the paint on there and that would have been the end of it. But, it's not like we're not going to talk about right after this a championship that could be made just for the sake of immediately switching it over. So it's not a guarantee, but I do think that a running theme from at least my predictions, and it's going to carry over into a point where they do something to make me think otherwise. I don't think that the Elite's dropping their championships, and I think that with Darby Allin having his Grand Slam title match coming up and really not knowing exactly what they would do with him as the TNT champion, I'm leaning way more towards Jack Perry retaining here.
I'm probably actually going to go Darby Allin winning. I don't
think Darby should lose a casket match.
The coffin match is his match. I don't think I think he might have lost a coffin match before, but I don't think it's because at the end of the day, he just throws himself around, and he probably, if you want him to lose a coffin match, all you have to do is lay Jack on a coffin. Darby tries to do the coffin drop. He goes through the coffin instead, and then you just put another lid on top of it. So there are ways to have Darby lose. I mean, the match itself, I think, is going to be is a sleeper to be the match of the night, because these two are great, and Darby just will kill himself as he always does, and Jack's just shown in the past that he's willing to throw himself around and do that stuff. I mean, he got set on fire the last time these two were kind of, outside of Blood and Guts, like back at Anakin Arena, got set on fire by Darby Allin. So they're going to go crazy. But I could definitely see Darby winning, because the TNT title is essentially Darby's title. That's been, I know obviously you've had like Cody in the first instance, and you'll always be associated with Brody Lee for his short stint with it, but this has been for the longest time been Darby's title. He's always been like the stalwart of the TNT division, if you want to call it that. And I wouldn't be surprised if he won it, because then you'd have him as a champion going into his title match, so he doesn't, when he probably does lose that match at Grand Slam, he doesn't lose as much face, because he's still already holding a title. And there's they've done things in the past where people have been holding multiple titles, and it could be a pretty cool visual of having Darby go for both championships and try and hold them both up. But I know that they have done the new thing with Jack Perry's his own custom belt, but I don't think it's as if it's a world title, I think that's slightly different than just one of your mid-card titles. If you just customize that, then I don't think it's too much of a big deal if he loses it after a couple of weeks of making that new design. And also, you could always just go down a path, especially with the TNT title, or just at least some of your mid-card titles. There should be some more back and forth with some of these ones. That Darby Allin wins it, he holds it going into Grand Slam, but then he faces Jack Perry in a rematch at Wrestle Dream in another kind of big gimmick match, and Perry wins it back and reestablishes his custom belt. So, yeah, I mean, I probably think that I would go with Darby Allin winning.
And you're still you're going Darby Allin as well, Rob?
I think that he shouldn't lose these kinds of matches, and I also think when you have a world title match, you should try to be strong as well. We don't have any points on this, so I think I will stick with Darby Allin, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Jack Perry somehow squeaks his way out of getting a win in this one. Did you see any real glass?
Is it a glass coffin?
I want him to come out to cult personality.
Oh my god. That would be fun.
There were so many people in the Dynamite match just chanting Crimea River at the thing, and then when people tried to get the CM Punk thing, they would just shout down. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. People have a lot of fun with that stuff.
They should. That's the type of thing that can elevate a little bit of the mood right beforehand. And I mean, it's this match is going to be one of the big, like you said, sleeper matches to be. It's one of the ones that I'm looking forward to the most, and that already should have a lot of buzz to it. But if they play around with something like that, it can kind of rejuvenate the crowd a little bit more even too. especially if they end up following a stinker. Who knows? But yeah, I'm going to go Jack Perry retains because I think that there's going to be a different title change here of the AEW International / American Championship. MJF holding that American title, defending against Will Ospreay. Even though they just introduced this whole American Championship thing, I'm very much just in the boat of like, all right, they did this to get some heat and to play around, and Will Ospreay's going to win it back. It's going to revert back to the regular International Championship. That's the end of it. Will Ospreay versus Pac at All Out.
Yeah, I think that that's it won't make sense for Ospreay to lose at Wembley. Like he'll win the title back from MJF here. He'll hit him with the title driver 91 and pin him. That's the story they've told. They basically just screamed it in your face with Danielson coming up to him backstage and saying, "Just do it." So yeah, we know that how the match is going to end, but it's just a story leading into that. And yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think there's going to be some color, going to be some blood in this one. It's going to be more a violent iteration of their 1 hour thing. I don't think it's going to go anywhere near that long, but it's still going to be an epic that builds upon what they established in that match. And yeah, very much looking forward to it. I think that they kicked up the intensity a notch with the promo exchange they gave on Dynamite. I thought that was very well put together. They pretty much just like finally the bit that Excalibur very well said about MJF saying the quiet part out loud when he basically said that you came in and ruined it, which essentially the whole basis of his heel turn or going back to the heel thing is because Ospreay was just more popular than him, and so he couldn't stand that, and that's why he's so jealous of Ospreay. So yeah, I think it's one of the matches I'm most looking forward to. I think it'll be absolutely great, and Ospreay will win the title back.
Yeah, I see no reason for him to lose. So I think he'll win the title back. And I think him versus Pac will be a fun match for Chicago, and hopefully Max is onto something more enjoyable.
Now that I have no clue. Like, what he does at All Out is kind of a mystery to me, but maybe there's a plan to have him defended against Pac, and I'm not seeing that. And it's, it seems like it's so obvious to me that Will Ospreay's going to win this title, and then they're just going to go like, haha, we got you. But I would be more inclined to think that MJF would retain if we didn't already know who was fighting for the title next. And if there wasn't already something between Pac and Ospreay and the international title and all that stuff. So it does strike me as more of just like, maybe Tony Khan was like, it'd be more interesting if we booked this match where you win the title and then he has to win it back. And we got this American title. We can play around with that, and that can get some heat in England. And if anybody is going to potentially cheer MJF, that'll be a way to offset that a little bit or something. But it does kind of strike me as just like, all right, well, we're going to reset the clock, go back to Ospreay. And it's not a bad thing necessarily either. It's not like every title reign needs to last forever. And MJF scratches that off his bucket list, and we move on. The international title becomes the international title again. And I think the match is going to be definitely one of the better ones.
When MJF's future pretty much also is very much predicated on the future of Daniel Garcia. So, because if Daniel Garcia does come back to AEW, that's the obvious path for MJF.
Yeah, that's something that there's been no, it's like, as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been anything that has indicated that Daniel Garcia isn't going to re-sign. It's just a matter of, well, he hasn't, and who knows. But I'm still thinking we're going to see Garcia still in AEW. I don't think he's going to end up going to WWE. So I'm working under the assumption we're going to get Garcia comes back sometime either next week's Dynamite or the week after, and it's going to be like, okay, well, Ospreay, Pac, international title for All Out, Garcia, MJF, just in like a grudge match at All Out. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Now, as far as maybe being wrong, this AEW World Championship title versus career match, Bryan Danielson, I should say, against Swerve Strickland. I have been so wrong about this pretty much the entire way leading up to this. I was so set on the idea of, well, Danielson's whole story is he's going to get a title shot or he's going to win a belt or something, and then he doesn't. So he's going to lose the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. It's going to end up going to Hangman Page. We're going to get Hangman Page versus Swerve at All Out. Maybe Danielson fights somebody like a Nigel McGuinness. Maybe he fights somebody else. I don't know, but he'll just do something else. It'll be on the card. He'll have fun and we'll move on and, you know, whatever. He'll have his big, end send off later on the year at Tacoma at Dynasty. And next thing you know, he wins the Owen Hart Cup. And I'm like, all right, never mind. And then they add this whole career-ending stipulation to it. I am so on the fence about this that if you asked me at the beginning of this podcast who I would be going for, it might be different than what I would be going with now. And by the time we get to the end of SmackDown tonight, my opinion might change. Because there are so many avenues that they can go in this that would feel afterward to me like an obvious thing, but it's not going to be obvious until it happens. It might be as simple as Danielson just loses and his career is just over and it ended earlier than I was anticipating. His contract situation's very strange. And I don't know if that's the biggest indicator of everything, or if that has fuck all to do with it, because it seems like Danielson and Tony Khan are tight enough that I could see a scenario where it's like, okay, well, we haven't hammered out a contract yet, but I'm going to give you the championship and I'm going to trust that you're not going to just fuck off and do something crazy. But then I'm like, well, do you really want to just have Swerve drop the title? And then if so, what do we do for All Out? Okay, well, that goes back to the Casino Gauntlet. Or maybe not, because the Casino Gauntlet doesn't have to necessarily interfere with that. Okay, well, then what do we do with Danielson if he is the champion? Can he actually wrestle for the whole rest of the year? Does he drop it super fast? What does he do at Dynasty? Is he even there? Is he contracted? Is he not? I'm all over the place with this. And at least I'll say right now, I'm leaning towards Danielson wins, but you guys might be able to convince me the other way around.
I still think Danielson wins, but I said this before we got on the air, I am floored at how well they have made me believe that there's a really good shot that he just loses. Every interview this man has done has simply said, my neck is fucked. I need neck surgery now. My daughter wants me to lose. She just wants me to go home and be a dad. It's to the point where I'm like, well, Tony wanted Sting to retire at Wembley. Maybe, fuck it, Danielson's the next best thing. They added the tagline of the final countdown to the match. And I'm like, what? What's happening here? Is he just done? I'll be pretty sad, I'm not gonna lie, because I too am expecting him to go to at least Wrestle Dream in Tacoma, and then continue wrestling on and off after that. But like the idea of it just ending here is still really sad, and I think even though people like Swerve, I think it's still more of a downer than what you would like to end your show on. You know what I mean?
There's another element to this too. Like, is that a downer? Is that a celebration? Is that, do you end the pay-per-view if Danielson loses? If he loses and it's like, okay, well, we're assuming he never wrestles again. Is that a good way to end the pay-per-view because it's ah, man, okay, let's all like clap for him, and he gets a big, thousands of people to be like, thank you. But then it's also sad, or is that the best way to end it because he gets to end the pay-per-view being the focal point?
I mean, we know how it's going to end eventually. We know that is the end goal. Eventually, he's going to lose his last match and he's going to get that send-off. It's whether he's fighting for the title and never ends up winning, or he loses the title in a couple of months' time. So I think that they've done a very good job of balancing this out to the point where like you can believe it either way. I think, as I kind of mentioned, I think last week, I think Swerve's title reign has been an unmitigated success just from a character perspective. I think that he holds himself like a world champion. And I think that he is a clear indication of a guy who took the title and was like, okay, he's probably worthy of this level, but he still has stuff to prove, and then has gone from strength to strength while holding the title. He feels like a certified main event guy now, but he will be in the main event of AEW for a long time to come. So, but from that perspective, it's been a success. But we all thought, people thought at the time, like, oh, they're just going to put the title on Ospreay against him, or like some other people who won't hold it particularly long. Like, this is what he kind of does, is that he's a bit of an underdog himself going into this, because people just expect that Danielson is going to win. But he, just from a pure character perspective, he goes into every match just feeling like he's got the upper hand, because he's so good at the mind game aspect of it. Like, he's bringing in like Danielson's family, like threatening to like subtly threatening to like invade their home and do the stuff that he did to Hangman, in order, basically saying that he's willing to kill Danielson and kill his career to retain that championship, and questioning whether Danielson is willing to do the same. And I think, and the whole thing has been built around like him destroying Wheeler Yuta a couple of weeks back, and him making those comments, the stuff with like Jeff Jarrett and everything. It's all just been building around the idea of, does Danielson have the fire to do it one last time? And I think pretty much based on the segment they did in the closing angle of Dynamite, I think that you just have to have Danielson win the title off the back of that. Like I say, I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if you had Swerve win, because it's a big mark of Swerve and how much like importance you put on him, and how much you view him as like a top guy if he's the guy that retires Danielson.
Yeah, it's a hell of a way to put him over.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have Hangman Page win the Gauntlet, then that's a ready-made match for All Out, is him versus Hangman, and they finally get to collide at All Out. And that is the rumor is going around, is that in some form or fashion it's going to be Swerve versus Hangman Page at All Out. But I think that, see, what I don't want to happen, and I've seen this idea thrown around as well, but again, it's another good sign of the unpredictability of this match, is that you have one side win, and then Hangman, if you're very vague about this future world title match, Hangman comes out, cashes in a title opportunity, and wins the title himself.
On the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and I don't want that to happen, because I think that's WWE. That's like, I know I was going to say WWE bullshit, but it's like, that is just what WWE would do. That's the Money in the Bank thing, and it's not that is necessarily a bad thing in itself. It is that AEW should not be doing things that WWE do. So I don't want them creating this briefcase type thing that they can cash in at any point in time. With the Casino Gauntlet, it should be a case of, okay, if Hangman wins, then he'll get the opportunity side. So if anything, it could be just that Hangman's super pissed off because he won the Gauntlet match, and so he wants to take the title off Swerve. And so if Danielson beats Swerve, then Hangman's probably going to be even more angry, because it's a case of, I couldn't be the one to take the title off of you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to beat your ass All Out, and then I'm going to take the title from Danielson, and I'm going to hold it with pride. So there's the ways you can go about it there. I don't want Page to be. I don't mind if Page gets somewhat involved in this match, but I don't want him to be like the reason why either Swerve or Danielson loses.
Yeah.
Or or win the title off the back of one of them winning, because I think that's just a downer way to end the show. Obviously, the most spectacular way to end it is to have Danielson holding that title up, fireworks going off, final countdown playing. I think that's just going to be a big emotional. It's one of the things that, like, I referenced it in the past when we talked about the Sami Zayn Roman Reigns match in Montreal. Like, you're not going to get the same opportunity to do that again. So you have to capitalize when you have the opportunity. Like, yeah, I know, like, you had the Roman match with Cody coming up, but, like, you were never going to... The planets had aligned for that one opportunity to have Sami Zayn win the title and be treated like a god, and that would be a moment that you could play in your library for years, decades moving forward, as, like, this happened and everyone remembered it, remembers where they were when it happened. That sort of big moment, and they didn't take it, and I don't want AEW to feel the same sort of regret. The only thing that obviously stands its way, and the reason why there probably is a lot of doubt about this match, is because it's Danielson, and Danielson and Danielson doesn't care what anyone else thinks. He wouldn't care in most circumstances if Tony Khan had a gun up to his head going into this match saying you have to win this match. Like, he would lay down and take the pin, and he would, like, forego the pre-approved finish and just lay down. But I think in the same way that they gave Sting the tag titles when Sting didn't want it, he's basically said, I need to have Bryan Danielson's name in the history books as a former champion in AEW.
Yeah.
And so he's going to win the title here against his better judgment, and then he's going to hold it for a couple of months, and he'll lose it at Wrestle Dream in Seattle, and then he'll go out on his sword. And yeah, I think that's the logical path to take. I think Swerve will win it back one day. I don't know whether he'll necessarily be he'd be the guy that beats Danielson for it at Wrestle Dream, but I think that he'll win it back one day. He's definitely got a long time in the main event for AEW, and the feud with Hangman Page is far from over, and that's going to be a big thing moving forward for them. So yeah, I think you give Danielson this moment, you give AEW this moment of, like, something that they can always go back to and celebrate, and just have that kind of warm feeling when you watch it back. So yeah, I'm fully focused on Danielson winning the title.
Since I'm going to be doing the post show on my own, of course we'll eventually be talking about this no matter what happens, but just like to put it out there in advance, Swerve wins, Danielson wins, who takes the title from them next? What are your out there predictions? It's like, Danielson wins, when does he drop it to who? If it's Swerve, when does he drop it into who?
So my original idea months ago was Danielson wins and he loses it to Darby at Wrestle Dream. That Darby match is coming up a lot sooner, but I'd still like to see Darby as one of the next champions, because I think that's what this company needs after Danielson, is a guy, even if it's going back to Page, it's a guy who feels like they have no ties to anywhere else. They are AEW, and they can really carry that.
I think that...
What would you go with if it was Swerve, though?
Oh, no, I just said I think Darby should be the next world champion.
No matter who it would be, it would just go to Darby. Oh, okay.
So I think that if Swerve retains... Actually, I think either way, I think Hangman Page is the next champion. But I think there's different routes that you take to it. I think that if... Because I think that the Gauntlet, that Moxley's going to win. Or if Moxley's in it, then Moxley wins. That I think that he'd have a match with Danielson. I don't know where that would take place. I don't know whether that'd be the all-out match, or... Because there's been a kind of like the on-running story of... I know it's been sadly, they're not playing much into it, but like any time that Moxley has faced Danielson one-on-one, Moxley's beaten him. So they could tell that story of like Danielson finally getting that win over Moxley on his way out. but I think that Page makes the most sense to be the one, whether it is Danielson or whether it's Swerve. Swerve, just because, that's the whole story, the whole narrative is him just making sure that Swerve can't win the title. But the best way that he can make sure that Swerve can't be the champion is to hold the title. And so, whether that's him taking it off of Swerve or it's taking it off of Danielson, it means that as long as he's holding the title, Swerve can't have it. So I think that, I think that Wrestle Dream, it'll be Hangman beats Danielson for the title.
And I'm going to, at least at 4:47 p.m. on Friday, I'm going to say Danielson wins the title here. He fights. I like this idea about the Moxley thing for All Out. I'm kind of also sort of thinking maybe Page doesn't win the Gauntlet and we get Swerve and Page in some, just,
it has to be some kind of. They've done a cage on paper. They did do a singles cage because Adam Copeland broke his leg. I was going to suggest a cage.
Yeah. So it's got to be some kind of gimmick if they do that. I mean, no matter what, it's got to be some kind of gimmick. But
have they done I Quit matches yet?
I don't know if they've had a traditional I Quit match, but they've had matches where people have to quit. So
I mean, Blood and Guts are not an I Quit match.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't really want them to do too many gimmicks that WWE does. I mean, Texas Deathmatch is enough. It's close enough to the Last Man Standing thing, though.
Right, but I Quit is more. Wrestling.
They had Christian versus Adam Copeland was an I Quit match.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe something like that. But yeah, if it's Danielson, I'm gonna say my prediction for who the next champion is. Strangely enough, I'm gonna say that it's just gonna go back to Swerve. Maybe that's not necessarily the case, but I could see a scenario where Danielson puts over Darby Allin at Wrestle Dream. But man, you play fast and loose when it comes to Danielson and his injuries and his potential future and all the other elements like that. It's not something you bet the house on. So I would never tell anybody to go based off of my prediction for this. This has made this way more interesting with the career stuff going on. And I'm hoping it's just the storyline and it's not a matter of my neck actually is messed up and I just have to cut my career shorter than I was anticipating and all that stuff. But we're going to find out, I guess, on Sunday. So that is a huge question mark that I'm looking forward to finding out the answer to. And the pay-per-view itself, we'll have our coverage of that the way that we normally would. We're going to have that up on smarkmoment.com. We're going to have that up on the wrestling news too. Have a post show immediately following that with any thoughts that I've got. And of course, the live chat. Take advantage of that while you can. Whenever that is, maybe we'll get some more people involved because it'll be an earlier show. I don't know, but we do have SmackDown tonight. We've got Collision tomorrow, and we've got All In on Sunday. We got a next round of the hot tags coming up next week to talk about anything else that happens in the meantime. And the main event for next week is going to be more pay-per-view related stuff because we've got Bash in Berlin and we've got NXT No Mercy immediately following that. So that's going to then be followed up with All Out. And then we'll finally come back around to one of our traditional around this time of the year things. We'll probably sometime in September do our annual tier list of the rosters and talk about the AEW and WWE women's and men's divisions. We were talking before about possibly doing something based off of old pay-per-view names with Bad Blood coming around at the beginning of October. So we might do some kind of maybe we do a tier list about that instead, or Mount Rushmore or something else related to that. I don't know, but we got another Darkcast to figure out. We always have the Pick Your Poison tier available if anybody wants us to jump on some kind of like a superstar scores or a fan outs table or something. Keep all that in mind. As long as I'm still kicking, I'm going to be trying to keep doing podcasts and stuff, but you never know how anything's going to work out. 2024's been fucking brutal. And, hopefully the pay-per-view is brutal in a good way, and we'll talk about that on Sunday. Bounce back around here, though. Keep in mind that you can not only leave your comments on the YouTube video and wherever else you're listening to this, but you could also hop onto our Discord server and chat it up, whether it's during the pay-per-view, during the TV shows, or just at any random time throughout the week. Yeah, I am not super busy with that. I wish that I could just like chat it up more, but I try to chime in whenever I can if somebody drops a meme or, asks a question or something like that. But that's up to you guys. Hang out on the Discord, do all that. Check out fanboysanonymous.com and make sure that you help out anything else under a Mango Tree by going to the link tree at anthonymango.com. Find the links to all different accounts there. Follow me at Tony Mango all across the board, and at Smark Moment and Fanboys, blah, 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 blah. If you click around there, you're going to see lots of different links. So just click on those, and keep in mind that you can not only follow what I've got going on, but Rob and Callum have stuff too.
Yep, you can check me out everywhere at Dude Felice. You can check out Fightful.com. We already have interviews up with Danielson and Mariah May. There's an article up on the website right now that I was working on as we were talking about Danielson wanting to see Satnam Singh fight a bear. Go check that out. And yeah, just continue supporting. Again, it's at Dude Felice everywhere. But check out what Callum's got going on too.
You can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. The power rankings every single Saturday over on smarkamo.com is where you'll find my weekly contributions to the website, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances, whether they won, whether they lost, whether they go up and down based on any championships they won or lost as well. And then you can also find the Fantasy League there and at www.fantasyleague.com, where our teams continue to pick up points. So just check out to see who's doing well at the moment. Just see how we're doing. Bash the Berlin is the next big moment where we'll have some big points being scored and people being dropped from teams and trades being made. So yeah, check all that stuff out.
Okay, everybody, that does us in for the pay-per-view point prediction side of AEW All In, as well as the hot tags of the week. Let us know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we will see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.